Way hello, hi friends and relatives, and welcome to season 2 of The Glorious Mess with me, A Glorious Mess. I am so excited to be diving deep into what healing looks like for different folks from a ton of intersectional backgrounds and what models and pathways to healing work and maybe don't work. This whole thing is not about us being professionals and telling people what or how they should do. Instead, we're coming at this from a peer support lens whereby we have lived expertise. We've been through stuff and we want to help you get through stuff and get you to a place where you feel empowered and you feel like yourself, whatever that might mean for you. Today, we're talking about getting into the body. EMDR is a very popular therapy model that I have both benefited from and my guest today as well. So we're going to talk a bit about that experience. What is EMDR? What is somatic therapy? How do we build comfort once again within our bodies? I know as a queer person, sometimes we more than anyone have issues with feeling unsafe in our own skin when we navigate a world and a system that wasn't made for us. And so somatic therapy provides an opportunity to connect back into self. And we're going to dive in deep with my dear friend, icon, legend, statement star, Shayla. Welcome to The Glorious Mess.
Yes. Hi. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited. And now I did say an acronym, EMDR, but I'm going to, do you want to tell everyone listening
to
what?
Tackle the word jumble? Yeah, totally. So we got eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Try saying that 10 times fast.
I don't want to.
Pretty self-explanatory. It's just a lot of big words. Yeah.
No, and I am so excited to have this conversation, and I know we've talked a bit about this and like how we've tried these somatic things, and we're both movers for those of you listening, and so I think a lot of movers find some peace of mind in this style of therapy. But what I'm actually interested and not a lot of people, it's very popular, but also I don't know. Have you ever brought EMDR up or somatic therapy to people and they've been like, what?
Yes, definitely. It's really hit and miss. Some people know everything, and then some people have never heard of it in their lives.
No, not at all. And so we'll dive deep into that. But because this whole season is all about this T word, trauma, I'm curious from your perspective, what does trauma mean to you?
Yes. Oh, the loaded question. What is trauma? Obviously, it's so subjective, but for me, in my experience, if I had to sum it up, I think that trauma is any experience that exceeds your nervous system's ability to process at that moment. So obviously that looks totally different for every person, as everybody's system is different, but something that takes your nervous system into that survival instinct where it's not able to kind of process and realize what's going on. And that's why trauma comes back, and it brings itself back up when you can process it and all that good stuff, and it lives in your body, as we're about to discuss. But yeah, anything that I guess sends your nervous system into that state of survival that it's not able to cope with at that time, I think would be traumatizing.
I love it. Hey, and there's no wrong answers. I think trauma is so complex, and our attachment to the word trauma changes and ebbs and flows. There was a time where the word trauma was it triggered me. I felt so deeply uncomfortable. Whereas I feel now I have this empowered sense of yeah, there is trauma and we all have it. And that's our thing that connects us, I think, as human beings, regardless of who you are. Let's talk about collective trauma of COVID-19, we've all been through and seen and experienced so much collectively. So even if you're someone listening and you're like, oh, I don't have any trauma. I had a decent life, mom and dad, blah, 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 how all these kinds of stories and narratives we tell people of what is not trauma. But you'll be surprised that, again, it's when things happen to you where you had no control, at least in my that's how I see it is. Yeah, it's you don't have control. It happened to you, and yeah,
I agree.
We're all just a big collection of trauma. So then take me into a bit of your story for people who are listening, and specifically around how that came into you finding EMDR and somatic therapy.
Yeah, so my life was just trauma on trauma on trauma. And so I was just born into an abusive home, and so kind of childhood trauma. And then I got into an abusive relationship, and so I had some more trauma. But I was really fortunate that I had a really, really good support system. Like my best friends when I was a kid are still some of my best friends now. And that actually led me to therapy for the things that were happening in my life. But yeah, I just grew up in a very, very unstable environment, and that my nervous system's been haywire from the get-go. But I'm very fortunate that I had people that noticed very early on. And so they led me to adults who were able to lead me in the right direction. And then I had a therapist suggest EMDR. And that's how I figured out that what I was experiencing was trauma. Like I didn't, because it was from the get-go, I had no sense of like, hey, this is maybe not what everybody else is experiencing. Or like, hey, this is affecting me in a way that is like not so great. And so that process of having a therapist introduce EMDR and then learning about what EMDR was and what it was supposed to help brought me to the realization of, hey, the life I've been living has been deeply traumatic. Where do we go from here?
And so what exactly, in your definition, like what is then EMDR?
So yeah, when I did it the first time, like now I know a lot about it. There's been a lot of research recently, and as we know, trauma is kind of a buzz right now, and so there's so much more information. But when I was going into it, all I knew about it was my therapist was very like psychoeducational. She was like, hey, here's this thing. It's kind of new. It's going to help you. Can I try it? And so they explained it to me as the eye movement part is you follow some sort of object. At the time, I literally just followed her finger, but now they have like cool machines and stuff that you follow with your eyes. And then I just talked through what was a really traumatic memory that they had kind of pinpointed as maybe being a source of a big issue. And you just talk through it, and that kind of like eye movement, as the name suggests, helps you desensitize and reprocess the event. And so that was, in my understanding of it, was that it was supposed to help me kind of feel through this traumatic thing that had happened to me while having that stimuli that kept me in the room, so I wasn't totally overwhelmed by that memory, and I was able to process it and kind of work through what was happening with the eye movement at the same time.
And how would you compare that with like traditional talk therapy?
Yeah, so it made like the world of a difference. It opened my eyes to like what trauma therapy actually was, because until then I had done a lot of traditional talk therapy. That was like the route that I had taken. And being able to sit in that room and like visualize, like essentially be in a flashback of what that traumatic situation was, but being able to still speak through it and have that like cognitive, like I hadn't dissociated, I was still in the room following that eye movement was like life-changing. It gave me the ability to kind of have an objective picture of what was going on, and I felt this like release in my body, and it was just a totally different experience. It felt very somatic. Obviously, it was very much a release of energy instead of just this like constant rumination of thought, if that makes sense.
When I always say to like in our world today, we're taught to distract or dissociate from these really intense things, and it like you feel it. It's quite palpable. Like, have you ever done like a massage and cried on the table?
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
like these areas of tension are real energy that get trapped, and if we don't allow ourselves to release these things, what happens is it keeps that energy in this vicious cycle. And so, you know, some people will say, like, that's why I always talk about like things come in waves, right? And it's when that energy is there, something activates that energy, it comes back and it comes back, and it manifests in ways, you know. And I know you wanted to touch on this too, like when we look at pain and the emotional connection to folks who deal with chronic pain, and the fact that a lot of folks who have chronic pain come from a wealth of traumatized backgrounds, and that's not 100% of the time, I know, but there is there's a connection there, there's a relationship there. I think that's so interesting.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. Anybody who knows me hears me complain about pain all the time. And it's not like necessarily a cause and effect. Like trauma can cause chronic pain. It's not a 100%, but they do coexist so frequently. And the idea of like somatic based therapies like EMDR, just any sort of body based, is so useful because they are so interconnected. So you'll find that like when you're doing these actual processing therapies, that it can kind of manage that or make that pain a little bit more manageable versus when you're living in your head, you're intellectualizing and doing all the traditional talk things, you're like missing that body portion. So those with chronic pain and where that is really linked, it could be made so much worse without that like body accompaniment, or that like energetic release can help so many more physical things. It's all connected.
When and it's interesting too, because it doesn't even necessarily have to be in EMDR or somatic. Like there's so many, if you think of like the benefits of things like yoga or like we said, dance, but like if you've ever just like, I don't know, I really like walking downstairs and then feeling my body like reverberate. I find it so like grounding, and I'll regularly, like if I need to move through something, I jiggle my body or like shake it around, because it's like, it's freeing. And then you like, that's I think one of the limitations of talk therapy can be, is that talk therapy is so helpful. And how we've been conditioned and how we exist, like we exist so much in the mind, but like when I think about it, I'm like, wow, we have to find this holistic connection between just the talking and there's like that like mind, body, spirit. So like there's this interconnectedness to us all, and there's this spirit behind it, and it needs to work with the mind, but it also needs to work with, as I hug myself, like,
yes.
And hugging yourself is somatic therapy also, everyone. So
it is totally.
if you ever need, like, the somatic is my favorite. And so if somebody were wanting to, like, what would you say is like the number one reason why you would tell everyone to go do somatic therapy?
Yes, because I wish that everybody understood that while it's so important to think through your feelings and understand like the whys behind everything, we're talking about trauma, but this could be applied to anything. You don't have to have big T in order to benefit from somatics. That emotions are stored in your body, like it's a physical energy. And I don't mean that as in like an energetic field, like it's physics, like it's in there, it's a physical energy. And you need the somatic release to finish that equation, no matter what that is. And so whether that's literally just shaking, as you said, or like putting pressure, it could just be a stimming, is another word for it, or the full-blown therapies like in EMDR. But everybody could benefit from understanding how to physically move emotions through your body. That would be, it's for everybody. All of us need it.
And without like that, and like, I think that's because we have so many easy distractions, and we know capitalism loves to like make you feel good, quick release, urgency culture, getting things now. Like I ordered Uber Eats and it took 10 minutes, like, or Amazon, like, it's like you don't have to wait for anything anymore. It's so interesting. And like, I think we just like participate in these things and we don't even realize like how much we're doing a disservice to our body.
Totally, yes. Where I feel like as a society, we're so disconnected from our bodies now because of the urgency culture and capitalism and all of the negatives that come along with it, quite frankly, or all the stress that comes along with it. Yeah, I think everybody would benefit from just like sitting and learning how to like be in their body and what that feels like. I think a lot of people don't even know how to move things through their body, as I said, trauma or not. Everybody could. And
as I say, it doesn't have to be complex. Like there's, we've created these complex systems, but it's like, no, like just going for a walk. Like my brother talks to me all the time about like how he loves going for, if he feels like a bit of anxiety, he'll go for a walk. And then by the time the walk is done, he's like, everything's fine. Like it just shifts, and it's the body is trying to communicate to you. The body is trying to say, hey, pay attention to this. But again, we live in this society that just like wasn't made for the nervous systems we have. Did you post something to your story I ever want to say today? Or it was like something, maybe you didn't, but I just always assume it's you. But it was like, we have to start focusing on like the system as the problem, because we weren't like, this world was not built for our nervous systems. So no wonder we see mental health, no wonder we see chronic pain issues continue to rise, because we're just not.
No, it's totally a byproduct of our surroundings. Absolutely.
And what did you like? Think of school. Like, did you learn any somatic, or did
Oh
you
my
learn how to
God.
regulate
No.
anything in school?
No, not a single thing. No, as I said, I was really fortunate that I like found people early on who guided me because if not, yeah, you would never know. It's not out there.
And I love that you talked about that too. Like, I love like relationship. Like, relationship is so important and healthy and sometimes triggering and activating as well. All of the things. But having that network, like for you, that those people were like,
Totally. Yeah, I think like connection is so important and that looks different for everybody. Like I don't necessarily love to stress the idea of like you don't have to have this gigantic support system or like anything like that. It can be just one or two like close people, but just having another person to share that connection and like go back and forth. You can hold each other's weights and like things like that. I think is so important in any healing. We're not meant to tackle things on our own. That could be circled back into the society we live in. Like the capitalist urgency society tells us that we are meant to power through everything as individuals, but it's just not how we're meant to live or heal. You need other people, you need connections. Yeah, so important.
and you need to feel like shit sometimes. You need to, like we've been sold on this lie of like everything should be good all the time, and then when things aren't good, we immediately go to like something's wrong and it's bad. And then what do we do to like feel better? Well, we go order something, go,
Yeah, totally.
go on vacation or whatever that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if someone like, if we're thinking of it like in practice, like, and you might not know the answer to this question, and I don't think I have the answer to this question, but like when it comes to EMDR or like somatic therapy, is there things online or for people, because it's not really financially feasible all the time, hey?
No. Oh my gosh, no. The financial barriers of healing are insane. I think though, just like even the base of it being bringing more attention to your body, like that's something that you can practice in your everyday life at any time without having to fork out the expense of going to see a somatic therapist, or just bringing movement into your daily life. Like as I said, if it's like a pressure thing, maybe you like a big hug, or I have like a weighted stuffed animal, things like that. Just bringing body awareness into your everyday life, I think is, yeah, so beneficial. It doesn't have, as I said, it doesn't always have to be complex, right?
No, exactly. Yeah, like just move your body, just touch your body. And we had talked to like, like for you intersecting like your work in that with CBT, like you found that really helpful, hey?
Yeah, I do find benefit in both. I think that my brain really gravitates towards an intellectual kind of thing just because of my neurodivergence, the way that I think, but I think they can work really well together. I do think that like somatic work maybe holds more weight in the sense that I don't know that you can just work on your brain, like just go to CBT and then not do the body part. I think that's only half the equation, but I do think that there's value in CBT and the idea of focusing on things that you can control. I think is a valuable tool that I like gained from that type of therapy, but it has to be used in conjunction with the bigger picture, I think.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, and you get to think that, and that's like your your journey,
Totally.
and like we really get to like create these toolkits, for wellness and what we want to do. And there was a word, and I didn't want to forget about it. This bottom up processing. Can you
Yes.
talk more about that?
Yes. Okay. I just recently learned about this, so just a full disclaimer: this is just a lived experience opinion so far. But this idea of bottom up processing. When I learned about my neurodivergence, I learned that this was how I process. And yeah, it's just the idea of instead of processing, thinking of the whys, the how, kind of like the anxiety worry brain, it's processing through your body first. So thinking bottom up through your feet, like thinking of grounding, dropping into your body. What are the physical sensations that go along with this experience, and starting there and processing it through your body, and then making an intellectualization or kind of a cognitive from what you derive from your body, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
leaving the thinking, I guess, until you've already processed what's going on in your physical body. And it's just the basis of somatics, I think. I love it so far.
100%. No,
Just a different way of processing, but yeah.
No, remember the what is it, earthing? It was like a big trend, and it's literally just taking your shoes off and stepping on grass.
Grounding yourself.
Yeah, like when people like, I'm like, everyone just loves to coin a term. They're like, earthing. Yeah, have you been doing your earthing today? I'm like, what is that?
Has
Like,
to be new.
have I just lived as a human being? Like, but again, back to the idea of like, we're just so busy sometimes we don't have time. We don't get, and we don't make like the time to sit with healing. We spend so much time just going through the motions, going through everything. And I was in a workshop or a day meeting. It was like 6 days or 2 days ago, sorry. And it was like a 7-hour meeting. And there's like this, I don't know, do you ever get this? I call it like the boomerang effect. And it's like, if you ignore your body, and so I was in this 7-hour meeting, my body was uncomfortable. I was not taking care of my food. I was just eating like coffee, sugar, carbs. That was it. And anyway, when I left, I was feeling like light and I anyway, why I call it the boomerang effect is like that. If you ignore your body, then when the thing is done that you forced it to get through, then it needs to process that, and it is so much more. It's so much more uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
if you do, and I was doing a workshop last time I was in Vancouver. It was called "Get Comfortable with Being Uncomfortable," and I was using like improv as a way to make people feel uncomfortable, and I was like, anyway, game changers. It changes the game. But yeah, again, it's like nobody wants to be uncomfortable. But if you ignore these like micro moments to check in and come back to self and come back to your body, if you ignore them, then it has to come out at some point.
Totally. Exactly. That's the whole thing. That's why I feel like the somatic has so much weight, is because you have to, like, that finishes that process. You like need that end goal of releasing it, or else it does. It just keeps coming back and coming back until you finally do. So much better if you just do it the first time or as many times as you need.
Yeah. And so how do you, because obviously, you are a movement educator. You are choreographer extraordinaire, but how do you, or do you bring some of this somatic work into your classes? Like, what does that look like?
I do. Yes, I do. I'm still in the process of like building my kind of standard curriculum, but this is a huge focus of it right now. So I always start all my classes with instead of just jumping right into a warm-up, you know how it's kind of, you just jump in, the music's going, we do like a nice kind of guide into it. We check in with your body, we check in with your breathing, we go through a body scan. Depending on the vibe of the room, we like guide you through some breath work. And it's just like a really gentle kind of wake up of your body so that you can meet your nervous system where it's at, and bringing that interoception kind of into the practice right away so you're in your body. And then as we move through class, I have like a huge focus on the language I use being about your body, like how does it feel versus how it looks necessarily. And then always finishing classes with like a nervous system check-in and a cool down. Once again, you don't want to leave people like buzzing, so that's no good for anybody's nervous system. So yeah, really pulling that like awareness into your body into all my spaces. And then I have these like little somatic exercises that I've kind of picked up along the way that I try and bring into my warm-ups and stuff. I have one that's supposed to like send a signal of safety to your nervous system when we're stretching our necks, and it's just like you do this little like bobblehead, like the most minimal movement you could ever do. It almost makes you feel a little bit lightheaded, but it's supposed to give this like, eventually you should sigh, and it gives that like calm.
Oh, am I doing it? Like what? I just need to.
I think maybe even less. It's like really, really minimal. It took me a while to find it. Anyways, and then it just like should release a little bit. It's kind of the similar one as you can do. This is a vagus nerve one. We do these too, but where you like look from side to side. Have you ever done that one?
Yeah, Kate. Anyone who's listening, I want you to guide me through. I'm in Shayla's class right now. Take me through this exercise. I want to know.
So this one actually I got from somebody else, but so hands clasped behind your head, putting some nice pressure back there. It's the somatic being, and then we're gonna take your eyes all the way over to the right side as far as you possibly can. And then you hold there, and this will be different for everybody, but you essentially hold there until you feel some sort of, like sometimes it's a sigh, sometimes you swallow, just some sort of little like signal of release. There was mine. I said it's totally different for everybody. And then you come back, and then whenever that happens for you, then you switcheroo over to the other. Whew. I got mine right away there. I needed that.
Right?
But yeah, this stuff is totally different for everybody. But
Sorry, say that one more time.
oh, I was just gonna say this stuff is so different for everybody. Like one that feels good for somebody else, maybe a different one feels good for somebody different. But I love that one.
No, and that's like that's what I think I love about somatic therapy. I have one like it's like you lie in your bed and you on your tummy, and then you shift your hips side to side, like rocking them side to side, and it is so grounding and beautiful. But it's really funny when I think of it. Like I'm always thinking like if someone comes in right now and sees me, just like right. And this is the thing, like what would you say in your perspective is like why are we so disconnected from our bodies?
I think that it's like such a complex. There's so much. I think that our society and like the way that I say capitalism so much. Anybody who knows me, I
Yeah.
could talk about capitalism forever. It is hurting our system so badly. So I think that just this society that we live in of this, like always having to grind, like you always have to be trying to achieve something, whether that's like your career or you're trying to make money, whatever, this like consistent urgency. It just keeps us outside of ourselves. We're always looking for something else. And we have to, like, that's a huge part of how we live. It's not even a choice all the time, but just I would bring it back to the society that we live in and that there isn't much education until you've run into a problem. Like the only reason that I know so much about this is because I didn't really have any other choice, right? But like there's not like this universal education about it. So yeah, yeah, a bunch of things. So complex, but
Yeah, no, multi-layered, and but it's empowering to to remember like some of what I'm feeling has nothing to do with me, but is bigger than me.
totally. Yeah, 100%.
That when you come at it from that place, it can really change the game. I'm curious. This is a random question, but I'm curious. Have you seen the Snapchat AI?
I've seen it. I haven't like used it or anything, but I know what it is. Yeah.
So I decided to role play as someone who was experiencing suicidal ideation.
Oh gosh. Okay.
It was so I thought it was I felt so supported by the AI. It was and it was so interesting. And so I'm curious like what your thoughts are in like mental health and AI, because some of CBT is really like black and white sometimes. It's like just interrupting thoughts and like just to see. And so I thought, wow, what an interesting thing. Like someone could have been experiencing this and didn't want to tell anyone. And in this, now they get to tell someone and they get that confidentiality, but then they also get that like resources. Like by the end of the conversation, like it took me through a whole process and then it gave me more resources and it was like anywhere in the world, like anywhere you could get. I was like, this is anyway. So I wonder, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on mental health and
Yeah.
AI?
I think that's great. I think that I probably don't have a very good understanding of AI. So the risks of this might be larger than I can comprehend. But in that context, I think that's really great. Like I was a kid who used like hotlines or like a kid's help phone, like that that needing to be anonymous was really important to my situation. So this idea of like having that sense of security with you're not really talking to a real person, you probably feel so much more safe to open up if that is kind of what you're aiming for. I think there's so much potential there to do a lot of good and like to diffuse a lot of crises, to kind of see it like avenue there. Yeah, I think it's great. I think obviously it would have to be there's like the logistics of making sure the information that's being fed to it is correct and that it's not diving people into the wrong places or like giving maladvice or things like that. But I definitely think there's a huge potential, even just in the education aspect of it, like directing people to the right resources and stuff like that.
And that's the thing. There is, the more there's everyone cares about mental health now. Finally, I think, we're finally paying attention to it. There is free resources. There is opportunity for you. But what would you say is like a form of healing for you that is not, because we think something's wrong, I need to go to the hospital, or something's wrong, I need to go to, in my mind, I need to go to a therapist. What's like a non-traditional healing modality that you've used on your journey?
I do. I guess it would be considered healing, like yoga. Would that be like a non-traditional, like that type of stuff?
It
Yeah.
can be, yeah,
I do
yeah.
a lot. I do a lot of yoga and just like breath work and meditation on my own, like not things that I necessarily like went to a class for, but just the like gentle on my own that I found really helpful. Yeah. I mean, I've been through like the therapy mill, so that's where the base of my support comes from. But yeah, yoga, gentle like stretching type movement
Yeah.
has been a like majorly healing. I'm actually in the process of learning about yoga therapy right now. I'm like working with a yoga therapy practicum student. They're going to help me build a yoga therapy practice for myself and my body.
Ooh.
So stuff like that I find is really useful if you're looking to do stuff at home. Just nice gentle restorative type movement.
Yeah,
Nothing
yeah.
crazy.
I love it. Okay, well, we're coming to a conclusion on our beautiful episode. Do you have any closing thoughts you want to leave with folks?
Just that you don't have to feel like something is wrong to benefit from these things either. Obviously, if you're listening and you relate to the trauma portion, then this is hugely important. But even if you're like, I don't feel like I have trauma, you can still benefit from all of this. It's just so important to be in touch with your body and take the time to get to know yourself and your body and what it needs and to trust it and to let it trust you. That was a lot of thoughts, but that is my closing thought.
I love it. Again, that's why I said at the beginning, empowering and feeling safe in our bodies again is really beautiful. So if you are listening, get onto YouTube, search somatic therapy, spend some time. A lot of things are financially out of reach for a lot of people, and I understand that, but with the beauty of the internet, there is a lot of simple things you can do so that you can get back to that place. And I just want to say also thank you, Shayla. You are wonderful. Thank you for your knowledge and sharing your expertise. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to me talk. I could talk forever. We know this.
No, we both could talk forever. And everyone who's listening, thank you for listening. If you are on social media at The Only Glorious Mess, we have all sorts coming up for season 2, all types of different healing modalities that people are sharing their real stories with. And so we hope that it helps you get back to you and being your beautiful, glorious, messy selves. Stay well, and I'll talk to you next time.